Let's talk about the telecom space now. This is, of course, the Bharti block which happened. Big one. FIs have bought about 5,200 crores worth of stock in that block. Gaurav Malhotra is with us, Executive Director at Axis Capital. Gaurav, good to have you with us here. Thank you for your time. Just first thoughts on the block which has happened. It's a big one. It's kind of answered that question. What will FIIs buy? When will they return? Well, they came back to buy that block yesterday, even if they're not buying anything else at this point in time. But, just your thoughts on the block itself and the trajectory ahead for the company.
See, the thing is, from our perspective, telecom is in a very, very good position right now, the telecom space, and Bharti as the market leader is benefiting from that, right? So you have a situation in which the earnings growth momentum is very strong. The visibility of this earnings, which in the current market environment is also very important, is also very high. Right. The company from the perspective, while from a valuation perspective, it is not that cheap, but, there are enough catalysts. So in the third quarter, management alluded to maybe bumping up the dividend a little bit. That would also act as a catalyst. So from our perspective, obviously the stock has done very well. And in this weak environment, it has outperformed quite massively. But even at an absolute level, we do feel that there is upside on the name on the back of the very strong earnings. The EBITDA CAGR is going to be around 18-19% over the next 3 years with very strong confidence. So that's the way we are sort of thinking about Bharti today.
Okay, all right. Hi, Gaurav, and good to see you. Gaurav, I wanted to ask you about, this promoter selling. How will the street take it? It's happened more often than once. They need to fund that BT acquisition. So how much more money do they require? Do they think they have to sell a little bit more? And your take on this?
Yeah, actually, quite a bit of the selling in the promoter group which is happening is actually on that restructuring in which Singtel's and Sunil Mittal family stake had to sort of be equitable over the coming few years. So we are not really thinking too much from that perspective. And what we had done in our work some time back, right? The British Telecom acquisition, which you're sort of talking about, if you just look at it, the kind of dividend which the dividend yield of British BT Telecom, right, versus the kind of interest payments which will probably be having to paid for that acquisition, I think so that's almost equitable. So you really don't need to sort of liquidate or monetize any of the Airtel stake to fund that kind of a transaction. That has been as per our working.
Okay, so then, you don't expect them to sell anything more, right? You're saying that they can be amply funded via the dividends.
BT is like a self-funding acquisition.
Gaurav, on the other one, which is this Vodafone idea, right? And the dues and, there's been so much talk. Even after the budget, when my colleague Shireen spoke with the secretaries, etc., and asked that question, well, it's up in the air. We don't know when it'll happen, how it'll happen, etc. But hope's alive, and it's important not just for Voda, but for the industry and even players like Indus, etc. Any thoughts?
See, it's always very difficult to take a call on these kind of, news flow, right? From our perspective, the way we are thinking about is that, there is obviously uncertainty on Vodafone. What happens with the AGR, what happens with the debt raise. Do note that the debt raise is now quite delayed. And while they have enough money in the kitty to sort of fund their capex for this year and maybe next, but beyond that, obviously the debt raise becomes critical. So for now, that's our negative. That's why we have a negative view on Vodafone. Just there are too many imponderables for us to sort of take stock of. And then obviously Indus is a beneficiary or gets impacted one way or the other. So if there are uncertainties on Vodafone, then obviously the same thing sort of holds true for Indus. So while Indus will have good free cash flow yield, etc., but we still are sort of neutralish on that name precisely because of issues with Vodafone. Almost 35-40% of incremental revenues of Indus over the next 3 years are premised on Vodafone doing the network expansion the way they have sort of alluded to in the last 5-6 months.
Okay. All right, Gaurav, thank you very much for that perspective. Much appreciated. We'll leave it there for now this morning.